How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. So today we're talking about, yes, a little bit of the starting rotation. We know about the Yamamoto reports. We're going to kind of put that to the side for now. I know Andy Martino of SNY just reported that the Mets are really in this kind of equation. A lot of people thought that they may have been on the back burner, but they're heavily in the mix. And I think that it's going to take the Yankees a good chunk of change to get Yamamoto, but I think they have more than enough. And clearly Hal Steinbrenner is committed to being aggressive in this pursuit. But we're going to talk about Clarke Schmidt today because Clarke Schmidt was the guy that didn't get traded in the Juan Soto sweepstakes. He was the one that managed to escape unscathed. And, we lost Michael King, and I really didn't want to lose him. I know, Ryan, you did not want to lose him, but the Yankees said to themselves, are we really going to let Michael King stand in the way of landing a Hall of Fame level bat at 25 years old? Clearly, they did not. And at the end of the day, King has never pitched a full season as a starter. We don't know if he can. And they went with the certainty over the uncertainty. And I think that ultimately was the driving factor behind this. Now, Clarke Schmidt, my friends, yes, he was inconsistent last year. Yes, he's got a long way to go, but he pitched 159 innings in 2023. He has the capacity and the stamina to be a starting pitcher in the majors. Now, the question is, where does he need to improve? And we're going to talk about that, exactly where he can get better so he can become a good middle rotation guy for us. Right now, let's assume we get Yamamoto. Obviously, we're hoping that's the case. You have Garrett Cole, Yamamoto, Carlos Rodon, Nestor Cortez, and then, of course, you have Clarke Schmidt. So, you have five arms there. Preferably we bring in like a Frankie Montas on a one-year deal to help us kind of smooth things over. But end of the day, Clarke Schmidt is going to be an important variable in this rotation. And if he gets better, this is going to be a really good player for us as a back-end rotation arm. Right now we have Nestor Cortez right above him, but that could change. So, before we dive into things, Ryan, how you doing today, my friend? And obviously, what are your thoughts on Clarke Schmidt and what his upside is here?
Yeah, so taking a look at Clarke Schmidt here, I really actually like some of the improvements he's talked about making in an interview recently he did on Fangraphs where he talked about getting behind the baseball a little bit more, which will help him a little bit, he believes, with velocity. But, not just looking at velocity here, I want to look at pitch shape, right? Because that matters. When you're talking about getting behind the baseball more, I know this is not this is a Somerset baseball, it's purple. I understand baseballs are not purple. But when you're talking about getting behind the baseball more, that means you're getting more backspin, right? The ball spinning more backwards, you're going to get more carry on your fastballs. If you think of it like, okay, how does this, affect gravity or all that stuff, right? Because gravity always imparts force down on the ball. You're creating more force that pushes against that keeps it riding through the strike zone. And when his cutter has more backspin, when he has more carry, so when it has over 10 inches of carry, batters struggle with it mightily, right? Like in terms of batting average, in terms of weighted on base average, that has a 291. The league average is around 317, so that's pretty good. In terms of batting average, they hit 210. In terms of slugging percentage, they don't slug it very much at all, which is huge. They only slug 394, so I think that type of improvement for his cutter would be huge. If he does figure out a way to get behind it more, especially since it'll likely increase velocity, it will probably just make it a better pitch, is really what I'm getting at here. And that's an improvement that if he makes that improvement, he makes that adjustment, he'll likely get a lot more swings and misses, a lot more soft contact, be a lot more productive. And we saw him improve during the season, since that Cincinnati start. I believe he had like an ERA minus, slightly better than the league average. And, he had that stretch where he would just go out there and he'd be 5 or 6 innings, allow 2 or 3 runs and kind of hand it to the bullpen, and that's winnable baseball right there. If he can do that for an entire season, that's winning baseball, right? All right, and you just need guys who are going to give you winning starts, and that's what Schmidt can do for you right now. And as you mentioned, he's kind of your 5th starter, right? Or you hope he's your 5th starter. Right now, he isn't. Right now, it's like Clayton Beeter or like Yoendrys Gomez, right? Or Luis Heel, right? And that's not an ideal situation. You do not want to enter 2024 with those guys as your 5 starter. And I'd even say you don't want to enter 2024 with Frankie Montas as your 5, or like Frankie Montas as your 4, Schmidt as your 5, Rodon as your 2, and Cortez as your 3. There's a lot of variance there. I really do think the importance of landing Yoshinobu Yamamoto, right? Like, you don't trade Michael King so that you don't land Yamamoto. If you trade Michael King, there is added pressure to land Yoshinobu Yamamoto, despite what some people originally thought, which would be, trading for Soto would preclude the Yankees from being as aggressive for Yamamoto. I know that there were some reports about, some teams were like, oh my God, they're still going to be in on him. And yeah, right? Like, same with the Dodgers and Ohtani, where it's like, oh my God, they're still going to be in on him. I know the Mets have kind of closed the gap a little bit, according to Andy Martino, which, I definitely do believe that the Mets are going to be heavy players in that. But, at the end of the day, for Clarke Schmidt, this is a huge year for him, right? Like, you're talking about a team that's trying to go all in. You're talking about a team that said, we traded Michael King, Clarke Schmidt, you're still here. After Clarke Schmidt was basically it was kind of a foregone conclusion you would get traded, right? Like, how many podcasts did we do in the month of November or October under the mindset that this guy would not be on the team next year? And look, maybe he still gets traded. Maybe there is a trade that opens up and he's somewhere else on opening day. But as of right now, it's highly likely he's still on the roster. And, that's huge for him, right? He's going to have an opportunity to compete. He's going to have an opportunity to be one of the Yankees' core pieces of their rotation for the next few years. I think another motivating factor here, on top of, as you mentioned, with the innings pitched, right? Like, Schmidt threw 159 innings last year. King has never done that at the major league level. I think part of the appeal here is also that, he's got 4 years of control on top of this year. So, right, so it's 2024, 2025, 2026, and 2027. That's pretty huge for the Yankees, right? You want to have your rotation kind of intact. I know that when they had traded for Montas, right, they had a rotation of Montas, Montgomery, and Severino all in the mix, who are all going to be free agents at the end of the 2024 season. And I think that's part of the motivation as to why they traded Montgomery, right? And, I think years of control do affect the Yankees' decision-making, because they know, hey, we're not going to extend all these guys. We're not going to sign all these guys. And, it's funny because had they extended all three, the only one that would have worked out so far is Montgomery. But, when it comes to pitchers, injuries are fickle, all that stuff. But having a guy in Schmidt who can get better, who's cost-controlled, and is going to be here for the next 4 years, if the Yankees don't trade him, is pretty huge for the stability of this pitching staff as they look to get a little more expensive with Soto and potentially Yamamoto.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get expensive. And like you said, the controllability of these pitchers is paramount. And Clark Schmidt is a free agent in 2028. So that makes a huge difference for the Yankees and their long-term plans. Obviously, you still have Garrett Cole locked in for the foreseeable future. Have Rodon for 5 more years. And, perceivably Yamamoto, who could sign a 7-8 year contract and lock him in for the long haul. But Clark Schmidt, you kind of reference like where he needs to improve. Obviously, finished with a 4.64 ERA. His strikeouts kind of dipped. 8.43 strikeouts per 9, 70.2% left on base rate. But a good ground ball rate, 43.8%, needs to generate a little bit more weak contact. So my little concern right now, we can kind of have a conversation about this. His velocity is nothing special, right? He kind of tops out at the mid-90s. His sinker has a little bit of life. His sweeper was disappointing last year. We know that Matt Blake loves that sinker-sweeper combination. Clark has those pitches. How important is it that he gets better with that sweeper? Because that slider needs to be his knockout punch. You know what I mean? That sinker needs to be that ground ball producer. Just that kind of lower level launch angle kind of pitch that just hits the ground. Obviously, sinkers traditionally have higher batting averages comparably to other pitches where you have like more breaking stuff like the sweeper. He has a nasty curveball. I would love to see him use that curveball even more frequently, because it's one of his best pitches, if not his best pitch at this point in time. How important is it that he develops that sweeper, though? Because we know the sweeper has become more of a prominent kind of pitch in the sequence for the Yankees with a lot of their pitchers, but it really wasn't that good last year, and I think that kind of held him back to a degree. It is a pitch that I think could be a knockout punch from, as I referenced. Obviously has that cutter as well. So, he has some good stuff. The sequence is great. Cutter, sweeper, sinker, curveball. That is a really good pitch mix. He just needs to improve on some of those individual ones. How do you think that sweeper plays into the long-term success of his kind of development?
Yeah, so looking at the sweeper, as you mentioned, it was a disappointing pitch, right? Like, it was a net negative for him. After last year, it was his best pitch, right? Or not last year, 2022. And it was the pitch he relied upon the most in 2022. So I wonder if that's going to be the key to his success. It's not like the pitch shape changed much. It actually did get a little worse throughout the season, but it's like it dramatically changed during the year. I wonder if maybe it was a little less effective as he kind of started working more on that cutter and, in terms of mental cues, right? If we're talking about, throwing a cutter versus throwing a sinker, the cues are a little bit different, right? When it comes to a cutter, you're thinking more gyro spin, not as much that get around the baseball, right? Like you're thinking more throw it like a football, right? Like you want to get kind of that spin around, right? When it comes to a sinker, you're thinking just get inside the baseball. When it comes to a sweeper, you're just thinking get around the baseball. So, there are different mental cues. Schmidt even talked about how he felt like he lost a little arm side run in his sinker because of the fact that he wasn't cueing as much for, get inside the baseball. He was trying to get around it a little bit more, or he was trying to get behind it a little bit more. So, at the end of the day, he added a new pitch, and he's kind of feeling the effects of that on his arsenal. We're going to have to wait and see if he can kind of blend these pitches a little bit better in 2024. Now, another thing here, too, is he is a very green pitcher, right? Like, he has very little experience pitching compared to what you would expect for a guy entering his age 28 season. He had under 100 MLB innings pitched entering 2023. And in terms of minor league innings, he has under 300 innings pitched. So this is not a guy who has made a lot of pro starts, who's made a lot of pro outings, who has pitched a lot of professional innings, whether it's injuries or, the COVID season or whatever it may be. He has had a lot of hurdles he's had to overcome. I think having this full offseason, prepared as a starter, built up as a starter, having the ability to say, all right, I learned this, this, and this, I got to get stronger, whatever it may be. There are a lot of factors to really like here for Schmidt going into 2024. But yeah, this is a guy who's going to have to improve. This is a guy who's going to have to hope that those offseason strides stick. And I don't know the exact ones he's making. Again, I talked a little bit about, how he mentioned in an article on Fangraphs that he wants to get behind the baseball more. But, we don't know what strength and conditioning he's doing. We don't know if that's how much of a game plan or how much of a emphasis that's going to be for him in the offseason. Velocity is going to be huge for him, though. Like, as you mentioned, like his velocity is kind of middling, and it got worse. It went from middling to below average during the season. If he can stick to 93, 94 consistently throughout the season, his stuff is going to play up, his pitches are going to be better. And look, I know people say, some guys are throwers, not pitchers. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, Alex, but let's be real here. Is Clay Holmes a pitcher? He's a thrower, right? Like, he just throws nasty pitches as hard as he can. And guess what? He is one of the 10 best relievers in baseball since the Yankees acquired him, right? Do you want to say that, do you think, I know that Garrett Cole is kind of like the perfect combination of thrower and pitcher, right? But look at the top pitchers in today's game. Dylan Cease, Spencer Strider, like those type of guys. They're not trying to go up there and saying, yeah, I've got to make the perfect pitch. They're saying, here's 99 miles an hour of straight gas, and you're going to try to hit it, right? And those guys are Cy Young getters, Cy Young Award vote getters every single year. So, this is where the sport has evolved. Velocity is king, right? Yeah, it's easier to hit a 91 mile per hour sinker at the same movement profile as, it's easier to hit that than it is to hit something that's coming in at 93, 94. Less reaction time, all that stuff. Stuff plus support stat. Your stuff goes up. Your stuff plus goes up considerably when you make gains in velocity. Your stuff plus numbers go down considerably if you take steps back in velocity, right? I know that guys like Luis Severino, like this past season, didn't really see a velocity decrease, but got worse. That has more to do with movement profiles. But when we isolate the variable of velocity and we say, all right, this is the only factor that's changing. If that number goes up, you're going to get a lot better. And if that number goes up for Clarke Schmidt, he is going to be a lot better this year. And, to kind of end my point here, if the Yankees get, let's say a 3.9 ERA. I know this is optimistic. I'm not saying this is what you should expect, but if they get 30 starts of a 3.9 ERA of Clarke Schmidt next year, that is a roaring success. That is going to help deepen your pitching staff. And this is a guy with comfort and familiarity with the bullpen. This is a guy who can go into a long relief role in the postseason and really show himself. Garrett Cole has taken this guy underneath his wing. He's been described as a competitive guy, kind of not you wouldn't say a head case, but very this is a guy who shows emotion and flair on the mound. This is the type of guy that I think the Yankees, personality-wise, has the makeup, has the personality, has everything that the Yankees need. It's just a matter of, can he get to that next level as a pitcher?
Well, we'll see how it goes. His development certainly is paramount to the Yankees starting rotation being a high, really high quality unit this upcoming season, especially if you get Yamamoto. Definitely helps things tremendously. Clarke Schmidt, the pressure is off of him. But I do think we need to get another guy in here to at least, battle him out. Give him a reason to hold on to that spot and get better. I think that his upside is a mid-threes ERA guy. Like, he's a good mid-rotation arm, and he can pitch 150 innings plus per season. But needs consistency. We need to see more from him. And I think that he knows that. I think we're just kind of saying it. He knows that, and I'm sure he's working on all of the things that we've referenced in this video. But guys, always happy to hear your thoughts below in the YouTube comment section. Make sure to like and subscribe as always. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.